After operating for over 25 years, Mary Greeley Medical Center Israel Family Hospice House will be shutting its doors on December 31st. Local 5's Emma Stroner explains why the center says the decision had to be made and why it reflects a larger trend in Iowa.
On South Dakota Avenue in Ames sits the Israel Family Hospice House, which is home to 10 patient rooms, but only an average of 4 patients per day. It's one reason why Mary Greeley Medical Center decided, after what they say are years of research, to close the facility.
It's a underutilized service.
Another spokesperson, Steve Sullivan, says is financial hardship.
Reimbursement costs for the care provided at Hospice House is insufficient to cover the care provided in many cases, and we have the overhead costs of the house. The last fiscal year, our foundations, the endowment that our foundation oversees, had to provide $1 million in support to cover the operating shortfall.
These two factors, combined with an increased competition for hospice care in the area, has made for a tough call.
This is a very difficult decision. It's a sad decision.
Sullivan tells me this follows several other recent closures in Iowa amid a growing popularity for in-home hospice care. Since 2022, at least 5 hospice facilities have shut doors throughout Iowa. At the same time, the demand for in-home care has gone up. Sullivan says the center serves an average of 40 hospice patients a day in their own homes, 10 times more than those at the facility. Another growing challenge may be the time when patients decide to seek care. As a past nurse and manager at the Israel Family Hospice House, Valerie Bolin says entering later than 6 months before death can cost the provider more.
If we have that patient longer, then we get Medicare reimbursement much better.
With nearly 2 months until this building becomes empty, Sullivan wants families to know that patients will still receive care.
The same high-quality, compassionate hospice care will continue in our hospital. It might be provided at partner hospitals in our immediate area. We're also in the process of securing 2 rooms in a very nice skilled nursing facility.
He tells Local 5 the closure is pending a board vote that will take place on Tuesday, but it's, quote, quite likely the decision will go through. In Ames, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.
A Des Moines man pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and attempted murder for shooting his ex-girlfriend's parents. Hazma Smalvich's trial was scheduled to start today after he originally pleaded not guilty to the charges late last year. Local 5's Alex Fulton caught up with the victims to hear their perspective for the first time.
Jasmine Robeson didn't expect her ex-boyfriend to whip out a gun, much less pull the trigger that night. She says on November 1st, 2024, he didn't display any signs of agitation until her life changed in an instant.
I did grab my 9mm and shoot Ruth in the head.
In Polk County Court, Hamza Smilovich admitted he shot Ruth and Tony Robeson, his ex-girlfriend's parents.
When you went to shoot Mr. Robeson, what is it that you intended to do?
I believe it was to kill him.
Jasmine Robeson says she was abused by her ex for 9 years, the entire time they were together. The final straw came on October 30th, 2024, the night he choked her in their Des Moines home.
You know, it's kind of just really embarrassing to leave in a domestic violence situation. So I knew by that point my life was in danger and I needed to take steps and fast to leave.
Jasmine's parents went to the home on November 1st, 2024 to help her pack up her things.
One of the items that they had started moving was a dresser that belonged to me. Inside of that dresser is where he kept one of his guns at all times. As soon as he realized that that was out of the door, he went and got it, picked it up, and he made the conscious decision to do what he did.
Ruth didn't make it, and Tony was left with life-changing injuries.
My speech and my face kind of slides a little bit now that the gravity's coming. Can't open my mouth very wide.
Jasmine says the shooting forever changed her family, but she's happy to finally get justice.
I aspire every day that I can find a love like the love my parents shared. There's not a thing that my dad would not do for my mother, and there's not a thing that my mother wouldn't do for my dad.
Smilovich is set to be sentenced on November 21st. He faces life in prison without parole for first-degree murder and up to 25 years for attempted murder. In Des Moines, Alex Fulton, Local 5 News.
The city of West Des Moines is taking the first major step in a long process that could lead to the redevelopment of Valley West Mall and surrounding property. They've officially designated the area as a, quote, blighted urban renewal area. Local 5's JD Snover took a look at the designation and who it's affecting.
Just 22 of an estimated 138 storefronts within the Valley West Mall are still operational, according to an urban renewal plan put out by the West Des Moines City Council last week. Now, as businesses continue to move on and find new locations, the city is one step closer to being able to redevelop 74 acres on and around the mall's property.
I don't want to, but I have to move.
Alina Dvorsky, the owner of European Taste, has spent the last 18 months at Valley West Mall, but low foot traffic is forcing her to relocate.
It was a good decision, but now I feel like I'm ready for more traffic, which I won't have here.
Her story is part of a broader trend. Susie Collings, owner of Where the Child Things Are, a boutique which has operated in the mall for the past 6 years, says uncertainty about the mall's future is pushing them out. In a statement to Local 5, she writes in part, quote, "Being at Valley West Mall has allowed us to grow our small business, and we are thankful for that." City documents show the mall's value has dropped by over $80 million in the past 21 years. Nearby property values have also lagged, rising just over 11%, which is about 35% lower than the Polk County average. The mall's potential demolition would cover 57 of the planned 74 acres. The remaining 17 acres include the former Valley West Inn and other land west of Valley West Drive along Westtown Parkway. Local 5 reached out to a nonprofit operating in that zone. They declined to comment but confirmed they're working with the city to understand what comes next for them. Officials have confirmed to Local 5 that there is a potential buyer and that sale could be closed as soon as the end of the year. In West Des Moines, I'm JD Snover, Local 5 News.
2025 might go down in history in Iowa as the DOT found this year may bring the lowest crash fatalities since 1925. Local 5's Emma Stroner shares what's working and what's next.
Every time you get behind the wheel, there is a risk of something potentially fatal happening. However, for Iowans this year, the roads are starting to look different, and some people are making smarter decisions. Each year since 1926, there's been over 300 crash fatalities in Iowa, but 2025 is sitting at 226. If this year's declining numbers continue, Iowa could reach record lows, and the state could see numbers unseen since 1925, when the year had 261 fatalities. As big players in the passing of the hands-free law in our state, Iowa Bicycle Coalition says this is what they've been hoping to see for years.
If this is just the beginning, boy, oh boy, I mean, we're on track for some really big improvements as far as roadway safety in Iowa.
It's the trend Iowa Department of Transportation hasn't seen in 100 years. So what's working? The DOT's state safety planner Larry Grant says it's a combination of factors. First is roadway engineering. Grant says they're adding more rumble strips to edge lines and center lines on primary roads and broadening those lines from 4 inches to 6. Next is advancing car technology. As new features roll out, Iowa drivers are starting to use smarter vehicles. And lastly, the decisions Iowa drivers are making might be a factor, especially in light of a recent law.
Hands-free is going to be a great tool to drive down those serious injury and fatality crashes again.
But until the number of fatalities in a year reaches 0, the work isn't done. Iowa Bicycle Coalition wants to drive another policy to the forefront for Iowa, and it's called super speeders.
Someone who is caught going 20 or more miles per hour over the posted speed limit multiple times, that there would be enhanced penalties for that.
With just nearly 2 months left in the year, Grant says ultimately
it really is a decision of those drivers
to see what numbers Iowa ends with in 2025. In Des Moines, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.
A former bowling alley on the Des Moines North Side will soon be home to dozens of families and a new chapter in the city's push for affordable housing. Local 5's JD Snover went to find out how it's part of a larger effort to address rising homelessness and housing insecurity across the metro.
This lot I'm standing on right now used to be a bowling alley. Now it's home to 40 affordable housing units with more on the way. Now, leaders say with families ready to move in this weekend, it's already filling up fast, showing the need for more affordable housing in the Des Moines area.
Building's technically full right now.
Barry Akunchis with Woda Cooper Companies, the developer behind the new community near Douglas Avenue and Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, says 23 units are already pre-leased. The rest pending rental applications.
That just goes to show the need, the desperate need for more affordable housing.
8 units are reserved for permanent supportive housing for veterans experiencing or at risk of homelessness. They're dedicated in honor of an Iowa National Guard member killed in action nearly 20 years ago.
This is not a pit stop for these families and the individuals and the veterans who will live here. It's not a shelter or a short stay. This is a landing. It's a place to settle down, to find solid ground, and to start building a new life.
It's one of several affordable housing projects the city is backing as homelessness numbers climb. Approximately 3,200 households in Des Moines rely on Section 8 vouchers, with over 4,000 more on the waiting list. And recent surveys show Polk County is seeing some of its highest homelessness rates ever. So while this door opens on the city's north side, leaders say the work is just beginning.
Today is really not the end of anything. We're opening a building today, but it's really the beginning of a long history that's going to go on here.
The complex will soon be home to 80 affordable housing units after another 40 are built. In Des Moines, I'm JD Snover, Local 5 News.
And the family of a Bondurant man could soon be in the eye of the storm. Local 5's Alex Fulton is in studio with what Antonio Riley is hearing from his father, who still lives in Jamaica. Alex.
Stephanie, Antonio Riley says Melissa is the worst hurricane he's seen hit his home country since 1988, before he was even born. His dad is choosing to hunker down and stick it out, hoping the worst of it avoids his home.
I'm this far, so I can't really help physically, but I'll try my best.
Antonio Riley now lives in Bondurant, but his dad lives in Ocho Rios. That's in the northern part of Jamaica.
When I talked to him this morning, he have power, so that's good, because I think half of the island right now is out of power.
Riley's dad has been seeing the signs of something brewing for the past week.
He say it was a lot of wind, a lot of tree down. You know, we have a lot of fruit tree, banana tree, and stuff like that. All those are like flat, laying down on the ground.
Hurricane Melissa made landfall in New Hope, Jamaica around noon on Tuesday, roughly 100 miles southwest of Ocho Rios.
I talked to my dad's wife, and she just said a lot of rain and winds so far. And as I say, you haven't hit them as yet, but it's going that direction right now.
Ahead of the storm, Riley's dad stocked up on extra food and other emergency supplies to prepare for the worst.
You got to get prepared with food, because when you're out of power, there's not much you can do. You know, you got to get like candle light, and they probably out of power for weeks.
Riley says the people of Jamaica are used to getting a hurricane or two a year, but it's uncommon to get something of this magnitude.
Sometimes when it's coming, we don't really think it's as, big, but, it's stuff they got to be prepared for, because you never know what's going to happen.
Riley is asking Iowans to keep Jamaica and all the people who live there in their thoughts and prayers as Melissa continues to roll through.
Hurricane Melissa is forcing residents and tourists in Jamaica to shelter in place as the Category 5 storm moves through the area. Local residents have no choice but to hunker down, while visitors risk being caught in such situations by traveling during hurricane season. Local 5's Larissa Leone joins us with advice from travel experts. Larissa.
Well, Stephanie, the official hurricane season for the Atlantic Basin runs from June 1st to November 30th. The peak of the Atlantic hurricane season is September 10th. Local travel agents say if you're traveling to these regions during this time, travel insurance should not be an afterthought.
Prices of vacations to destinations within the hurricane belt during hurricane season are often discounted. Independent travel agent Tara Kammer says, although you may be spending less, you are risking more. And it's a risk Hammer says she and her family have made.
It's a very scary experience. So highly don't recommend, but we could not get out in the time frame of when we were notified.
In 2020, she was vacationing in Mexico when her resort told her Hurricane Zeta was headed their way.
They had moved us off of the oceanfront rooms, gave us different rooms, bags of food to survive, had men in there in trucks the next morning picking up debris.
Over at Allied Travel agent Jody Valentine says she has had clients who've had eye-opening experiences while staying at a resort during a hurricane.
you're definitely in survival mode. And so is the resort, and so is the resort staff. In addition to them trying to survive, they're also trying to take care of you and provide.
If you are willing to take the risk of traveling during hurricane season, Kammer says travelers' insurance should not be an afterthought.
Once a storm has been named, you can't actually pick up travel insurance. So it is very important that if you are in travel season, you are considering that travel insurance or something that's going to cover you in case of that situation.
Kammer says you can also notify the embassy of the location you are going, the dates of your travel.
There is a registration form that you can use anytime you travel internationally, and you're just notifying the State Department that you will be in these locations between these dates so that if something does happen, they are aware.
As for what you can pack to prepare for these weather events, Kammer says the most important thing is protecting your phone and passport with a waterproof, safe bag.
The Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates by 0.25% for the second time in 2 months. Local 5's JD Snover is in studio with how we got here and what the news could mean for your wallet.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stephanie. The Federal Reserve announced earlier today that it's reducing that rate it charges banks to borrow money. But local economists I spoke with say it could be a bit of a gamble. With the government still shut down, the September jobs report wasn't released, meaning the Fed had to make this decision without a full picture of where things stand.
It's interesting to think of the Fed basically flying blind.
That's how Iowa State Economics Chair Peter Erasm says the Federal Reserve's latest rate cut was made without key economic data and under political pressure.
They're having to guess as to what's really happening with the U.S. economy, in part because the information that they have is at least 4 to 6 weeks old.
The Fed's legal mandate is to keep inflation low and unemployment down. But without the September jobs report, which was delayed by the shutdown, that gets harder.
They have a balancing act, and it's difficult to do. They've been doing very well, of course, in the last decade or so. But the situation is much more complicated now.
What is available is inflation data. The Consumer Price Index rose to 3% nationally in September, a full point above the Fed's target. And here in Iowa, it's even higher. A report from the Common Sense Institute shows Midwest inflation hit 3.1%, with Iowa households spending over $1,200 more per month than they did in 2020 to maintain the same standard of living. So why cut rates when higher inflation's in play? Economists say it's a trade-off aimed at supporting the job market.
They're risking some upward pressure on prices, but at the same time, they're making it a little bit easier for consumers to purchase goods and services, which is going to show up perhaps in increasing demand for workers.
Now, this is a top-of-the-chain decision, meaning there won't be an immediate impact on kitchen table finances, but ripple effects could show up in things like car loans, since banks may pass along some short-term savings to those car manufacturers. Stephanie?
Now, 131,000 Iowa families could go without food if the government shutdown continues and SNAP benefits aren't set out on November 1st. Local 5's Alex Fulton highlights some organizations stepping up to fill that gap.
A true example of Iowans helping Iowans.
The Iowa Pork Producers Association donated over 4,300 pounds of ground pork to the Food Bank of Iowa on Wednesday.
This is a good way to give back to our community. As a part of our We Care principles, caring about the pigs, the environment, and our communities.
It comes at a time when many of the families the food bank works with are wondering if they'll get their SNAP benefits in November.
There's just some anxiety around what's going to happen. Folks are legitimately worried about putting food on the table, not only for themselves, but for their family and for children.
Food Bank of Iowa Executive Director Tammy Nielsen is trying to make up for $45 million in benefits that likely won't go out next month.
We have ordered additional food. We've reached out to donors, food donors, and really trying to provide more inventory options as we know that things will go out the door more quickly.
Over in Ankeny, the Resurrection Lutheran Church is adjusting too. The monthly community meals will now happen weekly in November due to the uncertainty around SNAP.
I think one of the challenges in Ankeny in particular is that it feels like a place with a lot of resources, and it is. It's also a place that has a lot of inequality, and so there are folks who are relying on those SNAP benefits.
Pastor Beth Wartick says in Iowa, for every one meal provided by the food bank, 9 others are paid for by SNAP.
We'll do everything we can to meet that need, but it's a really big need. And so I do worry about what will happen as time goes on, if those benefits continue not to go out for an extended period of time.
Pastor Wartick is calling on Iowa's elected officials to work with leaders from other states to find a solution to feed hungry Iowans. In Ankeny, Alex Fulton, Local 5 News.
Dallas County is facing criticism for not including a property tax adjustment for the Apple Data Center over on the west side of Waukee. Local 5's Larissa Leone joins us with the consequences this mistake will have on the school district and possibly the city budget.
Stephanie, the Waukee School District's budget will see a $2.3 million shortfall due to the county's miscalculation of a property tax adjustment for the Apple Data Center. The financial burden caused by the county's mistake won't just be felt by the district, but the city as well. Over on the west side of Waukee, it's the new Apple Data Center. Dallas County first valued the data center at around $192 million. In 2018, the county agreed to apply a high-quality jobs credit to the data center's property evaluation, beginning in 2024 and lasting 20 years, decreasing the taxes Apple would pay on the property for the duration of that time period, and lowering the data center's property evaluation to nearly $61 million. The Dallas County Assessor's Office says the assessment year of 2024, the property was assessed per the minimum assessment agreement. However, the high-quality jobs exemption wasn't applied, resulting in the property having a higher net taxable assessment. The ripple effects of the county's error is being felt by the Waukee School District, slashing $2.3 million from its budget. Superintendent Dr. Brad Buck says, though the situation isn't catastrophic, about $1.4 million of that $2.3 million error will not be applied to the school's general fund.
So general fund is what we use to pay teachers, energy for the building, curriculum materials, sort of all the things.
Buck says the Waukee School District grows by 400 students per year. To support that growth, the district had plans to add upper elementary math experts and college career transition coordinators.
Just some positions that have been sort of beyond our capacity because of the cost of opening buildings. And so in the near term, what that means is that conversation basically comes to an end is in terms of expanded programming and support of our students.
Buck notes it will also impact how much the district can contribute to the interest and principal on their bonds, shortening funds by about $500,000.
The good news is we had actually a little bit of reserve in there. So we're going to be able to make that whole without charging our taxpayers any additional money.
The county's mistake also impacts the city of Waukee. City Representative Heather Barron says it will affect their anticipated city revenue by $3.4 million.
That's not going to affect normal city services that people expect to receive. Where that probably will have an impact would be more like infrastructure projects, maybe pushing out timing on a road project or something like that.
And the city also says the exact effects on this deficit is yet to be determined, but it will be able to adjust accordingly. As for the district, Buck says it is working to see what their options are as far as legal actions and legislative actions it could potentially take. Stephanie.
President Trump and Chinese President Xi have reached a deal to ease tariffs, delay rare earth export controls, and resume farm exports. President Trump is on his way back to Washington now. Trump announced tariffs on China have been lowered by 10%, now sits at 47%, which is still higher than when his second term began. Trump says China has also agreed to resume buying American soybeans. The trade truce is only temporary. The president announcing every year the two countries will have to meet to renegotiate the deal. Beneficiary of this could be farmers. Local 5's J.D. Snover looked into the specifics of their portion of the deal and why those farmers say they're still remaining cautious.
Yeah, Stephanie, that's exactly right. After months of stalled soybean exports, farmers say the announcement's welcome, but they're not quite ready to celebrate just yet. They've seen deals fall through before and say it's still too early to say exactly what the effects of this deal will be.
It's way too early to know what that means for us on the farm.
After getting locked out of their top export market for months, Iowa soybean producers are reacting to news of a new trade deal with China with cautious optimism, but they still want to see change in other facets.
There are only a couple of large grain companies that dominate the export market, right? So we need trade deals that benefit not just those folks, but the family farmer customers who are selling our product and buying inputs from these large multinational companies.
The Iowa Soybean Association says if the deal holds, it could help stabilize the market. But with the U.S. marketing year already underway and South America's harvest season fast approaching, time is running out. Last year, China bought 841 million bushels of U.S. soybeans, according to the ISA. This year, they've committed to just 441 million bushels. In a statement, ISA President Tom Adams states in part, quote, ISA is encouraged that these commitments are framed as minimums and looks forward to continued growth in soybean purchases beyond these levels. Back on the farm, Lannon says short-term gains are good, but long-term damage is the issue.
Trade relationships are built over time. Our farmers go overseas to talk to buyers. We invest in making these relationships work. And flipping a switch on and off, it cannot really be any substitute for being a long-term reliable partner.
Now, as of now, China has agreed to buy a minimum of 918 million bushels annually through 2028. That's a return to more typical levels. But farmers say the next administration's relationship with China will be key to making that promise a reality beyond that window. Stephanie?
On Sunday, a 16-year-old girl was shot on the east side of Des Moines. Local 5's Emma Stroner spoke with the victim's mother, who says what happened could only be described as shocking. Now, a warning, this story does contain details of domestic violence and violence against children.
A Sunday morning
still can't stop shaking from it.
Turned for the worst for Jakor Jones and her daughter Maya.
I never think in a billion years this would be my story, my daughter's story.
28-year-old Kevin Fajardo is wanted for shooting Maya in the face after a fight inside this apartment building. It started early on the morning of October 26, when Jones woke to her car missing. She figured Fajardo, the man she had been with for 3 years, took the car.
I called him, let him know, like, bring my car back, stuff like that. And he was disrespecting me, calling me on my name and stuff, which that's something new to me.
The morning followed a night together, getting professional pictures for Maya and going to a haunted house.
He just kept saying he was gonna hurt me, how I hurt him, and that he was gonna get back at me, but I didn't understand why. Because the night before, everything went well.
Then what unfolded is something Jones never expected to see.
He never disrespected me or my kids before, so I wasn't expecting, but I knew he was off narcotics and alcohol.
Jones tells Local 5 Maya had a reconstruction surgery after the incident and will have another on Saturday, a day after her 17th.
I'm supposed to be right now preparing for her birthday tomorrow, but instead I'm at the hospital with my daughter.
With their lives turned upside down, Jones wishes she followed her gut.
I did see signs of things that I looked over, which I shouldn't looked over, but I thought I put too much faith in people when I shouldn't.
Now, Jones wants others to take the signs seriously.
If you feel them, take them. Don't second guess them. Just do what you gotta do.
In Des Moines, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.